How did the world stumble into its deadliest conflict, World War II? It wasn't an overnight event. It was a slow burn, a series of calculated aggressions that were met with, well, not much at all. To really understand the outbreak of war in 1939, we have to rewind the clock and look at the warning signs that the world chose to ignore. Our story begins in the early 1930s, a world still reeling from the Great Depression. In the East, the Empire of Japan had big ambitions, eyeing the resource-rich region of Manchuria in northern China. Japan manufactured an incident in 1931, the Mukden Incident, as a pretext to invade. They quickly overran the area and established a puppet state called Manchukuo. So, what did the world do? The League of Nations, the international body created after World War I to prevent exactly this kind of thing, investigated, condemned Japan's actions, but had no real power to enforce its decision. Japan simply withdrew from the League in 1933 and faced no meaningful consequences. The first domino had fallen, and the message was clear: aggression could pay off. Meanwhile, in Europe, a storm was brewing. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power in Germany in 1933, fueled by resentment over the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler made no secret of his intentions to tear up the treaty and restore German greatness. His first major move came in 1935 when he openly announced Germany's rearmament, directly violating the treaty's military restrictions. The response from Britain and France, a slap on the wrist. They issued protests but were unwilling to risk another war to stop him. They were practicing a policy that would become infamous: appeasement. The idea was to give Hitler what he seemed to want, hoping he would eventually be satisfied and peace would be maintained. A year later, in 1936, Hitler took an even bigger gamble. He ordered German troops to march into the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone on the border with France. Another direct violation of the Versailles Treaty. This was a huge risk. The German army was still weak and would have retreated if challenged. But France, paralyzed by political division and unwilling to act without British support, did nothing. Britain felt Germany was just marching into its own backyard. Hitler later admitted that if France had acted, his regime might have collapsed. This was a massive psychological victory for him, reinforcing his belief that the Allies were weak and wouldn't fight. The same year, Italy, under its fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, followed Japan's example. He invaded Ethiopia, one of the few independent nations in Africa. The Ethiopian emperor pleaded with the League of Nations for help. The League imposed some economic sanctions on Italy, but they were half-hearted and, crucially, didn't include oil, the one resource that could have crippled Italy's war machine. By 1936, Italy had conquered Ethiopia, another act of aggression, another failure of international will. This series of events solidified the Rhombolian Axis, an alliance between Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. The Spanish Civil War, which also began in 1936, became a dress rehearsal for World War II. Germany and Italy sent troops, planes, and weapons to support the nationalist forces of General Franco, testing their new military tactics and equipment. In contrast, Britain and France led a non-intervention pact, which ultimately starved the democratically elected Republican government of support. The world watched as cities were bombed and atrocities were committed, but the Western democracies remained on the sidelines. Each of these events, from Manchuria to the Rhineland to Ethiopia, was a step on the road to a larger war. Each time the international community failed to act decisively, it emboldened the aggressor nations. They learned that treaties could be broken and borders could be redrawn with little more than a verbal protest. The policy of appeasement, born from a desperate desire to avoid another catastrophic war, ended up making that war inevitable. It sent a dangerous signal that there was no line the dictators couldn't cross.